What's going on, y'all? This your boy, Chris Simmons, coming to you with another podcast episode. Man, on this special episode with three-time returning guest. She don't need no introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Miss Sandra Cruz. What's going on with you, girl? How you doing?
What's going on, Chris? It's a pleasure to be here again, man. We have such great topics. Yeah, I'm excited for today. I'm excited for today.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I know we were having a conversation before this on what we want to talk about. And I'm just going to go ahead and give a disclosure to the audience. This episode will get deep. It may get emotional. So I just want to warn y'all, okay? Just going into the episode, we're going to talk about a very, very deep topic. I touched over it on my What Would You Do? Not my What Would You Do Wednesday, excuse me, Know Your Worth Wednesday with my girl Heather. So I did touch over it briefly, but we're going to get even deeper. We're going to get down to the core of the topic. And today we're going to be talking about suicide, man, because, I wanted to talk about this subject because it's just crazy how in this year alone, and we've only been maybe like a month and a half into the year, and I've already heard about at least 3 to 4 people that have committed suicide, man. Two of them, one of them was like a big time, I guess she was a celebrity or something. She was former Miss America in 2019. Chelsea,
Uh,
I think, how do you say that? Giselle Christ. I think it was Giselle Christ. I think that's how you say her name. That was the most recent one that I heard about. A young, fine looking sister, had a promising career, but reports are saying that she jumped from a building. I think it was how high was it? About 29 stories? Was
that's
that
what
right?
I heard. It was about 29 stories.
29 stories. So she jumped from her building and fell to her death. Now I've been kind of hearing some mixed things. I know like the news says that she jumped from her building and also had a suicide note. I heard one dude was saying how usually suicide notes are handwritten, and apparently this one was she wrote this on her computer. So I don't know, man. Like the news is saying one thing, other people are saying another thing, but the news is saying that it went down as a suicide death, but it's still sad, to hear somebody like that who had it going for her, just in her life that early. So, it was crazy when I heard that, man. And I also heard about somebody who actually went to my high school. I actually played football with this guy. I know when I was talking to him back then, I would have never got that because he was always a fun, goofy guy. You know, we talked a few times. I think I went out to eat with him, maybe a couple times, during football. And it just seems like he would have never been the type to do something like that. I heard he like hung himself, according to one of my friends on the football team. He was telling me about it, and I was like, man. And this dude younger than me. This dude, I'm 22, and he graduated a year uh, behind me. So it was just crazy to hear him go. It was just what in the world? It was like in your face. And then I also heard one, in the start of the year, where my mom, who was a principal at an elementary school, she had a former student of hers who was in 7th grade who actually
Wow.
committed suicide at 13 years old, man. Like
13.
13 years old. What could you be thinking about at 13 years old? And that's what blew me. And this was like, I heard this. She told me this on January 1st, so the start of the new year. She got an email about her student committed suicide on New Year's Eve, the day before the new year.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
was like, that's crazy. Like, what a way to go into the new year, starting off with an email from your administrative staff. I'm like, this is crazy. And this is where me and my mom started talking about it. And we were just kind of just confused, like, what could have contributed to that cause of death, man? Like, what could have attributed to her thinking that she had to end it all at just 13 years old? So that was the most surprising one. But every single one was surprising. But knowing that all these people were young and had promising careers, it's just sad, man. And I know my girl Sandra, she got even some more stories about people in her life that she's noticed that have committed suicide that were close to her. So Sandra is going to open up about her story, her experiences, and we're just going to take off from there. So Sandra, if you want to take the floor, it's all yours, baby. So go ahead.
Absolutely. I just want to go back to what you had just mentioned. You had said, me and mom were conversing back and forth, and we just don't know why. I worked for a couple of years in Florida within uh, the psychiatric system, and I actually worked in the Baker Act unit. So Florida has this thing where it has a law. It's called a Baker Act law, and so if you know that someone is ready to harm themselves or going to or harm me or going to harm another person, you can call Baker Act, and they'll be taken to a facility and be placed on a hold. Other states do have it, but some states you can actually sign yourself out, or you have to go voluntarily. So once you're in there, I think it's 72 hours regardless. But anyhow, the thing is that when I did work there, there was a psychiatrist, and I can remember him saying to me, um, Sandra, people who commit suicide usually plan it. And when they plan it, they become, um, what's the word he used? They become happy. They actually become happy with the thought of not feeling pain anymore. So for them, it's kind of like in their mind, they say to themselves, well, I'm going to be okay now because I won't be feeling the pain that I feel here on earth. And and I was just reading today in Untethered Souls, when we don't deal with that internal pain, it creates us to look externally to kind of quiet that pain. But what tends to happen is if we don't work on that pain, no matter how much external things you put on that pain to kind of quiet it up and push it down, it's going to keep popping up. And it's going to keep popping up in your relationships. It's going to keep popping up in every area of your life. And you're not going to be able to sometimes even keep relationships. Everything is going to seem affected, which is only going to make that pain greater. And so instead of dealing with the pain, becoming okay with the pain, they become complacent with the notion that they won't be feeling pain anymore. So instead of doing the adverse and dealing with it, they do just the opposite. So it was quite interesting that you brought that up. Plus, and when that happens, that's when self-sabotaging behaviors occur. And so it's deep rooted. It's really deep rooted, and it takes a lot of mental work and a lot of therapy and putting forth. Um, so, in thinking about that, I always think about one of the biggest lessons in my life, I think, was my nephew. Um, Growing up, my nephew, he came from a good environment. And when I say good environment, he was very well loved. But unfortunately, certain situations took place within the family between his parents that they were no longer together. And, one trauma isn't the same for everyone else, because I can say, oh, well, my parents were divorced and I was fine. I came out fine. I had someone say that to me the other day when we were watching Intervention. Oh, well, my parents split up and I didn't become an alcoholic. People deal with different things in different ways. And so, in knowing that everybody has a mind of their own. So in knowing that, I know that my nephew took a lot of things hard in his lifetime, and I can't speak for the operation of his mind. I look back now and I think, dang, I wish I would have spoke to him. Sometimes I do have those questions. Like, I wonder. Um, it's been 7 years now, but he took his life when he was 17. And it happened for me. It was like super quickly. My mom called me one day. I remember I worked at night, and my mom called me at 9 o'clock at night. And I was like, oh, I went to work at 11. I was dead asleep. I was like in that REM sleep. So I told she called my roommate actually at the time. And I told my roommate, like, no, I don't want to talk to her, because he knocked on my door. And I was like, tell her I'll call back when I get up. And so I said, I'll call her like around 11 just to make sure I'm okay. He goes, no, you want to take this call. And so he sat next to me, and I'm kind of like still like in a daze, like, why are you sitting next to me? Like, what's going on? And the first thing she said is, your nephew killed himself. And I just went blank, like, wait, what are you talking about? At first I thought, because she took a pause, I was like, what happened to dad? I thought something had happened to dad. That's what I thought. And it wasn't. And it was my nephew. And at the time, my nephew was 17. My brother found him. Um, And it was something that I just couldn't get through. But backstory, my nephew had oppositional defiant disorder, something diagnosed. And a lot of these disorders run comorbid. So you have one or two disorders running at the same time. Some people get diagnosed, some people don't. But to take it to the level of ending your life, then we know that something is deeply troubled and something's going on. I sometimes think, I have my degrees in psychology, but I don't have my license. So I have a lot of knowledge and a lot of things and patterns of behavior. And I like to share that with people, what I learned. I can't die. I know he was diagnosed that from an actual therapist. I can't say what was in the operation of his mind. I can't say what he was thinking, but I know it was pain. Um, and for us, it was quite hard. For me, it was hard because I say, I was a victim of that too. And people go, how are you the victim? You weren't the one who tried to kill yourself or had depression, but you're a victim. Why? Because when that person passes away, the pain passes on to you. And that doesn't end. And you can go through a period of asking yourself, what could I have done? Why wasn't I there? What happened? And listen, for the first couple of months, I was like, man, and you want to know something? I thought to myself, okay, he's no longer here. Right? So he's no longer here. What can you do? That's an ocean. That's like a wave that you can't fight. That ocean, you just got to let it pass through because there's nothing you can do. You can't take back time. You can't say, well, the shoulda, coulda, woulda. But what tends to stay is that, what could I have done? And so, yeah, you become a victim. You become a victim because you say, shit, this happened to me. The pain passed on to me. Because now I miss you. Now I'm wondering what I could have done. Why didn't you speak up? Now we knew he had all these problems. And they had sent him, he was in therapy. They had sent him to several places. But sometimes, and this is the greatest mystery, you will never deeply know what that person is struggling with on the inside. Never know. And you know what? This was for me 8 years ago. And I myself was at a broken place. I myself was not in a place to understand myself, to really sit and walk in my purpose and be there for my nephew, because I didn't know how to be there for myself. I was just getting myself together. Like, I was in my master's finishing. I was trying to get a job. I was so worried up here with junk, you know, and I beat myself up for that every single day. And so funeral happened, time passed by and years passed by. It's been about 7 years, man, 7 years. And I don't love him any less. I don't, I don't question any less, but I learned to be okay. I learned to be okay with the situation. I learned to say it happened. I went through the pain. I allowed myself to receive the pain, feel the pain, be okay with the pain, but I allowed myself to be self-conscious and present while the pain was occurring. To say there's nothing I can do, but what I can do is heal. What I can do is be okay with it and move on somehow. His memory will never leave me, ever. He will always be my first baby out of my nieces and nephews. Always will be my first baby. Ah, he looked just like me too. And that's a beautiful part about it, is learning how to be okay with the situation once you've gone through something. Because I went through years of shock. It was like it was like, I think I told you this before, Chris, I literally felt like life was just static. I didn't know, I didn't know how to comprehend it. I was like, okay, it happened. But I was like, it was like, it was like flatlining kind of. That's kind of how I equate it to. And so years passed, and let me tell you, during all that healing journey, I still had to go through it again, not once, but twice. Living here, I was living with a roommate, and one day during the summertime, I was living on a college campus, and one day during summertime, I remember I'm sitting in the living room. It's hot as hell, and when I tell you, I hear, it was a big, like, it was football season. I remember my roommate was in Spain, and all I hear is shouting. And so I used to hear shouting and screaming all the time, but all of a sudden I hear like, "I love you," and I'm like, this must be a fan, like maybe the Packers or something. Me thinking so innocently, so naive. And all of a sudden I look out to my porch and I see somebody falling. And I'm like, I look, but it took me a split second, Chris. And when I seen this in that split second, I was like, holy shit. This person is trying to commit suicide. My flight or flight response, my phone I was so nervous. I was physically shaking, but I knew I had to do something. So I grabbed some shorts. I remember because I didn't have shorts on. I was in my house. I was getting dressed and I was like, oh my God. I almost tripped over myself. I was like, oh, wow. I had to pick up my phone about a million times. With all that rush, I was running down the steps. I think I had on, like, I don't even know. I looked for some flip-flops somewhere. I think they were my roommates. I walked downstairs. Before I walked downstairs, I rushed to the porch and I looked down. I look up and I'm like, I see his mom. And his mom says out loud, I don't know if it was shock. I really don't. I can't even judge the poor woman. I can't even say why. I don't know. But she looked and she said, why did you jump? And I was just so like in shock of everything that was happening. I'm like, I ran. So then I looked at him, and this was, I literally was like, oh my God, I saw him convulsing. I mean, the sound of just hearing and I don't want to be crude, but again, disclosure, the sound that I heard when his body hit that pavement was not one I ever want to hear in my life again. And I can just tell you, when I looked, he was convulsing. There was blood coming out of like his ears. And I rushed, and I'm on the phone with 911, and I rushed, don't move, don't move. He was still talking to me, and I was like, kind of like, don't move, keep talking. Finally, ambulance came. And from all the shock, Chris, I just started bawling because I couldn't really I was like, this can't be real. Like, oh my God, like, is this seriously? Seriously? And so ambulance came, took him. He lived. He broke every bone in his body. I think he broke here. He broke his clavicle. He broke his pelvis. He broke, I think, like 20 different places. And had to have like million CAT scans and MRIs and things just because he hit himself hard. And so I learned the history because he got out of the hospital and he came to visit me. And so I told him my story. Um, and he said he was going to get the help he needed, and he did for a while. He did. And I would see him and he thanked me, and he was always thanking me. I was always trying to give him some word of being like, positivity. 2 years later, Maria happened here, and well, I got transferred to Atlanta, and I was still living in the same apartment, but I got transferred for work. So I stayed in Atlanta for about 6 months. Shout out to my Atlanta peeps. Um, but I went out there, and my roommate says one day, he calls me, he's like, hey, are you sitting down? And I'm like, yeah, what happened? And he tells me, well, the neighbor actually committed suicide. He actually went through with it, and it happened. So 2 years later, he took his life. He couldn't fight the demons. He couldn't. And I don't know, and I can't say why. I don't know why. I was really strong. I amazed myself because I learned just how to be okay with that situation. I learned how to take myself again from the perspective in the real consciousness into third person witness and be able to say, I'm okay with this happening. I know why it happened. And I'm okay. It's sad. I allowed myself to go through emotions because if you think I cried. I cried. It's a human life. It's a human life. And so being through it so many times, I've learned to really learn how to do that deep work to be able to deal with it. And it's difficult, but it's happening more and more and more and more each day. I mean, within the span of 3 years, I've not only seen, because then I came back to Puerto Rico, and maybe 3 years later, COVID hits. 3 years later, COVID hits, and I move. And the same thing happened with with another neighbor. And I hadn't seen this one happen, but I seen when, the girl walked in, she yelled because the way my apartment sits, I can look down and see what's going on in how 3 houses, their backyards. So I see she's yelling, but I see a dog jumping on her. And I think, well, maybe she's yelling because the dog's jumping. No. She had walked in to find a family member. I don't know what family member it was, who had been dead for days with a gunshot wound to the head. And this is crazy. I thought to myself, just like you said to Chris, this is happening more and more each day. And I think it's time for an awareness, to become sensitive, for an awareness for us to do that deep work, for an awareness to do deep work on both sides. To, if you're struggling, reach out, call that awareness, reach out, get real with yourself, do the work, reach out to somebody. And those of us who have been through it, where someone has taken their lives close to us, reach out, do that work, become self-aware, allow yourself to feel the pain. I know I did. And it's so important. It's all about healing at that point. Because we don't want, we can go down that same path of why did it happen? When did it happen? Because, and I did, it became static for me. I had to learn how to cope with it. And it was difficult, but at the end, I was able to rationalize it, deal with it, and be okay with it at this point. And so now that it's happening more and more, you know, sometimes we get lost in the why. We'll never understand that. But I think it's more about the healing after as well. So it's the whole process. It's the whole process. I can tell you how it was for me. It was eye-opening. It was awakening. It took me a long time to heal, but I did. And let me tell you something. Like, I told somebody else I told his mom, the first person who this happened to. I told her mom, it gets better. I promise, it gets better. And she said something that was so eye-opening to me, Chris. And she said, because I asked her, we talked after that, and she thanked me, and I asked her, and I said, and this is deep. This is real deep. She said, you want to know something? She said, I miss my son deeply. I miss my son every day. She said, but I'm at peace because I'm no longer wondering if today will be the day. I mean, think about that. Every single day he was telling her, she let me know in just little words, every single day this was a threat, because her son would always threaten it. Her son went through a battle with depression that nobody knew. He would write cards. He tried this more than once. So this was a constant threat for her. So she tells me she would wake up every single day with this fear. When is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? Am I going to find him? And it's a live fear because she didn't want it to happen. And then when she knew she couldn't control it, she said, I don't have to worry anymore. It was like a release for her. Or she said, because I couldn't do it anymore. Every single day I was wondering if it was going to be his last day, and I just couldn't bear with it. So there's a lot of emotions that go down with it. A lot of things that people will never even consider. And so I extended my hand to her, and I let her know that anything she needed, and she was more than grateful. And I tell you, Chris, I right now I'm telling you the story, and I have to stop because I feel so passionate about something that hit me so close. Oof.
Wow. That was pretty deep right there. You know what I'm saying? It take a lot of guts to go back and, kind of recall those details. Cause I know, like, I have not seen or witnessed people do it like in front of me, but all I can say is that I've heard many times where people have done it. And when I was in high school, man, this is crazy, man. In high school, you do usually 4 years. There's probably
Yeah.
5 to 6 suicides that happened in the 4 years I went to that school. That's crazy.
Wow.
5 to 6 suicides
And you
in the 4
and
years.
can I interject for a moment? You say that now, the timing. I remember when I went to college, it wasn't as prevalent.
Mm.
Wasn't as prevalent. And I have to help but sometimes wonder, what is it, a mix of things? Why things are getting worse? Do you think it's a mix of things? Could it be, the social media platforms and things that, a standard that society has that you must live up to, and the things that happen like bullying? How many things are affecting someone's mind to come to that actual point?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would definitely blame the social media, definitely blame the technology now, because like you said, like, you know, back then you said that that wasn't very common, but
No,
now,
I went to
you know,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I
you
went to
just went
school
to
in Manhattan.
school, you know what I'm saying? I'm sure, you know, there was instances where, you know, people got bullied and stuff like that, but it wasn't to the extreme as it is to now, because now
Yeah,
it's like, you know, I was talking to another lady about this, um, about how bullying back then versus now, bullying just happened at the school because you didn't
yeah,
have Instagram, you didn't have Snapchat or Twitter, you didn't have all these things to where you can expose somebody business out there, and not just people at school can see it, but people even like from other schools and other parts of the world can see what you own. So, you know, with social media being so big today, that has definitely been the increase of suicides, because just because social media now, people view social media as like the standard of living. People
yeah.
think
No,
that,
and it's a exactly. And it's a platform, Chris. I want to tell you something. It's a platform for people to speak freely, which is great. You can speak freely, but they take it to the other extent where I'm going to speak my mind. It doesn't matter if I hurt you or not, or what you think. I don't know you, you don't know me. And nobody becomes self-conscious of what they write or what the other person's going through on the other end, whether the person has something going on deeper than that, a mental health disorder or whatever is going on. I can tell you. I look at social media a lot. My company is off of social media. I make posts every day and see comments and use social media as a way to get to people. And it's quite crazy the things that I see. And sometimes you want to say something, like your fingers want to do it, but then I go, you want to know what? I don't know this person, and it might not be in my best interest to spend the time doing that. But definitely, yes. And it's that free forum platform for me to say anything I want, when I want, how I want. It doesn't matter if it hurts.
mhm. And see, one thing that I noticed, like when I was coming in like middle school and high school, and social media was first starting to, you know, become popular, was people would literally make fake accounts and they would just put pictures of people on there and expose them. I mean, they were like burner accounts. I mean, I don't know who was behind these accounts, but people would take people like in the school, put them on accounts and make them memes. And so
You're
that,
just,
what?
they still do that now. I have a
I
story
know.
for you.
Yeah, I know. I'm telling you, people, this is real. People do this, and this is what's affecting people's mind. Is like you putting somebody business out there, and you thinking it's all funny, but to them, they embarrassed. You see your
Yeah.
picture, see your embarrassing picture on there. You know
Let
what
me
I'm saying?
tell you.
Yeah. What's up? What's up?
Let me tell you guys a story about that. I'm sorry, I'm excited about this. I gotta interrupt you. I'm excited because this is another story, and it's a sad one. And I say I'm not excited to give a sad story, but I'm excited because it ties into what we're talking about. This happened here, and now you say burner accounts. That happened here with a case. They put this person on burner account, and they what they did on the burner account, they accused the person of committing sexual acts or sexual acts towards people, like abuse towards other, I guess, employees that they went ahead and had. Several complaints came out on this burner account. um Now, up to this point, nothing had ever happened, nothing had ever came out, but because of the burner account, this person's no longer living. This person took their life. I cannot tell you whether this really did happen or didn't happen. Only that person, knows. But it got to the extent, like you said, that he took his life because this was a person who probably had a family. This was a person who had everything, and because of this burner account, and I'm pretty sure other things were involved in this. It wasn't just the burner account. But let me tell you something. It's always more than one thing, but it all adds up. And the main thing that we all saw, of course, was that he was on a burner account, and it was too much, and people started the bullying, and people started calling him out, and people started doing things that, if they just, like you said, could have kept their mouths shut and let justice system, if it was true, deal with it. Or if it wasn't, then let the justice system deal with what was the people who were putting this burner account, just dealing with it in a correct way, whatever that may have been. But he took his life because of it.
Hmm.
And we'll never know. We'll never know. And it's not about knowing, but it's about the point that there was bullying involved. So I definitely think that's one of the causes.
And it's sad, man. It's very sad. Like nowadays, how it's people think like that stuff is funny. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what if it was you? You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy. Like now, along with that, aside from those burner accounts, people feel like they need some type of applause to make their life feel like it's meaningful. And if they don't get that applause, then they think it's worthless. Because what social media has done is they created something called the like button. And now it's all about the amount of likes and the amount of comments that you get on your post. And if it's not, and listen, I may have mentioned this before, but I'm gonna mention it again because it's relevant to what I'm talking about is when I was watching a social media documentary on YouTube.
Yeah.
There was a girl probably like 14, 15 years old, and these people were doing interviews with like different teenagers and stuff, just trying to get their idea of like, what social media is, like why is it so, toxic, why is it so misleading. There was a girl on there that said, if I don't get a certain amount of likes, I take my picture down. I'm just like, yo,
Yeah.
what? Like, that's
Mhm.
crazy. And that just goes to show you right there that it's all about the applause. See, my thing is this: you don't need an applause from other people to feel like
Right, right.
your life has meaning. You
Yeah.
don't need no type of applause from anybody else, because as long as you know what you're doing is meaningful to you, why does it have to be about everybody else? And that's the problem.
Yeah.
We get caught up in trying to live too much for other people. When in fact,
That
all we have
yeah.
to do is look in the mirror and look at what we're doing and the impact we're making and determine, is what I'm doing making an impact for me? But because we're so caught up in status and fame and all this stuff here, it's difficult for us to see it for ourselves. And that's why we get so in our heads to when we post something on Instagram and we don't get likes or we don't get followers, we think that nobody's watching, nobody's paying attention, nobody thinks what I'm doing is meaningful. But that's not true though. See, before there was no social media. You know what I'm saying? Like I think about it back then, people who, we look at today, they didn't grow up, the older generation, they didn't grow up with no social media.
We didn't have none. We
But
did not have
they still
any.
made it happen, right? You know what I'm saying? They still
Yeah, we
out
didn't
here
have
made it
none.
happen. They got, some of them got businesses, some of them are successful in their careers. They did this without social media. So, social media has made us feel like we're a slave to being on there because we feel like that's our only outlet. Our only
Yeah.
outlet now is to be famous on social media. And now that you can be an influencer and stuff like that and make a bunch of money, now it's like, oh, well, these people, they're doing, they're successful because they got the 3 to 4 million followers. But back then, like, people didn't have that stuff. And people, forget that. And they think that, oh, it's all about social media now. No, it's not. It's
It's
just
not.
about knowing what you're doing and knowing how to put yourself out there and market yourself, you know, the best way you know how. And I know social media has made it easier to do that. But back then, I mean, people were doing word of mouth. I mean, people were like, having to do the old school, put it on billboards. I mean, like people were doing old school methods and it worked.
You know what it is, Chris, too? Just to add to what you said before I forget. And it's people looking for external validation to hide what they truly feel inside, instead of really recognizing, okay, I'm feeling this way because I got the little itty bitty shitty committee going on here talking to me 24/7, instead of saying, I am worth it, I can do, and here I am. So they turn to social media to validate who they really are. You can't get validation from external resources because it's never going to work. You got to validate yourself and know your worth in order to move on and be successful in anything and walk in your purpose. Because if you don't got that, you ain't got anything. And so you could have all the likes in the world, and still look at how many likes this young wonderful lady, beautiful lady had. Miss America, was it? I want to say, was it Miss
Yeah,
America?
yeah,
Yeah, she
Michelle
was so
Price. Yeah,
beautiful. The world looked at her and crowned her. And you would think she would be so happy and that she had so much to give, but inside she didn't.
mhm,
She was not happy. And
right.
so that was external validation, but she wasn't really working what's inside to move forward. And so you can get all the likes you want, but what's going to end up happening is that it's never going to work, and it's going to affect everything you do when you go forward. And so how do you quiet that shitty itty bitty committee? How do you get to the point where you're able to move on and move forward in your purpose and really feel that, you know, and leave all that social media behind and say, okay, well, I don't need these likes to feel validated. I'll validate myself. I'm powerful myself. I'm that king. I'm that queen.
Yes,
So
yeah, and people thinking like it's some complex thing. It's really not. Like people just
yeah,
have made it complex to where they thinking like, oh, there has to be more to being able to go out here and step towards your purpose, like I always preach.
yeah,
No, all it is just taking belief in yourself. Like that's it. Like there's no complex, formula to feel like you validated. I mean, nowadays people feel like it is. That's why when we say just, believe in yourself,
mhm,
people like, no, there's got to be more. No, it's not. All it is, it takes that strong mind to see yourself successful. And I actually did a podcast with another lady. It actually just came out today.
yeah,
An episode called "Seeing Yourself Successful." I talked about how
yeah,
I wrote my book "Step Toward Your Purpose," and I used that as an example to see myself successful, right? And even though my mind was going in all different directions because I've never done it before, I've never wrote a book until last year. It was all new to me. I did want to do it, but when your mind gets exposed to something new or something that seems scary or seems risky, your mind tends to go in all different directions. But you have to
there
learn
you
how to
said it.
control that mind. You have to learn how
You
to
said
have
it.
one track focus, right? And
That's so.
that kind of goes
Yeah.
into to what we were talking about. Why people tend to have all these feelings and emotions is because their mind is going all different places. They know what to believe, they just choose not to believe it. They know to believe in themselves, but they choose not to because of other things that distract them, such as social media, such as other people's voices that tell them no, that tell them you're not good enough, that tell them you don't have the followers, you don't have the clout, you don't have
Right,
this. See, that's the thing is
right,
like, when I wrote the book, I had to stay focused on what I wanted. I had to have that clear vision to what I wanted to do with the book. And I couldn't let my past or, those little voices in my head tell me that you can't do it. I had to, block those out and control my mind and keep my mind focused on the prize. See,
right.
because in what if you so I'm gonna use this analogy. So usually, I used to play baseball. And if you played baseball, or we can even use pool as an example, if you ever shot billiards before, usually those two games, they take concentration. And usually if you take your eye off the ball, you're gonna miss, right? So when I played
Right.
baseball, they always told me keep your eyes on the ball.
Right.
Because once I look away from the ball, I'm gonna probably miss the ball because I'm not concentrated. See, how many of y'all missing the ball because y'all ain't concentrated? Y'all ain't hitting home runs
Yeah.
because you ain't concentrating on the ball. You looking at the pitcher, you looking at the first baseman, right? You looking at the coach, you looking at everywhere else, but the main target. And that's your problem right there. You ain't looking at the main target. You looking everywhere else, but you ain't looking at the target. So if you look at the target and you stay focused on the target, you will be able to hit the home run in your life that you've always wanted to hit.
Go ahead. That was rough. That was rough. I like that. Let me add to that too. Like you said, it's the target. It's so much going on in here, Chris, that people tend to, they do the pros and cons. And it's funny because today I went over a video. I'm in this 8-week course. And that's the same thing we talked about today. You know, a lot of times we go through the pros and cons. Our mind is here and there, and we can't make a decision because of that. And all along, we know the decision and we've already came to that decision. You know, she said, go ahead. I want you guys this week to practice yes and no. And I'm looking at, I'm like, yes and no. And so she says, you gotta go ahead and flip a coin, and on this side is what you pick a problem. On this side is what you want to do, and on this side is the other, you know, the other avenue you could take. And so I put myself, she stated something like, oh, she used a girl in the classroom, and the girl said something about wanting to leave her job. And so heads or tails, and the girl says, well, tails. And then when the coin flipped, it was for her to stay at the job. And the coach said to her, okay, so she goes, what is it that you really want? And she goes, I want to leave the job. She goes, okay, do you want to spin again? Do you want me to hit heads or tails again? 2 out of 3, heads or tails again? And then she goes, yeah. And the coach goes, no. You want to know why? Because you know the answer. Because if I were to flip it again, you would probably ask me to go again the 3rd time, just so that you can try to roll the dice to get what you really want, which is you want to leave your job. So you know the answer already. It's just all this going on in your brain. So this is one of the things that you can practice while you're trying to stay on target and trying to get to where you want to get to. And be focused. Like you said, if you're not focused with your eye on the ball, this is something that's going to happen. All that stuff is going to come in, and you're going to be going all over the place instead of just stopping and saying, okay, wait a minute, what is it that I really want to do? And get clear with yourself. You got to get clear with yourself on what it is you want to do. Stick with it and put a plan of action into place, because you can't just, and that's to resolve any and every issue you have. Because you can't say, well, no, this is what I want, but have no plan of action. She can't just leave her job and say, okay, I don't have a plan of action. She could say, okay, so I have a plan of action. I can't leave my job right now because that would be irresponsible for me not to have a plan of action. How am I paying my bills? But I can start this plan of action to get where I want to go. And so that's keeping your eye on the target. It's like keeping your eye on that ball. It's that plan of action that comes. Because when you go to hit the ball, it's a plan of action you have already set to keep your eye on the ball. And actually, the athlete looks at the play before he even makes the play. So why aren't we doing that in our lives? Why are we putting that to action in our lives? Call the play beforehand. Get clear with yourself. Call that play beforehand. This is what's going to happen. This is what I actually want, and this is how I'm going to go about it. And that's how you reach your actual target. That's a technique to it. That's how you keep your eye on the ball.
That's what's up. Yes, ma'am. That's what's up. Those are all great points right there. Those are all great points. And I want to make this final point because I feel like this is important for those of you who are listening. We talked about how our mind can go all different directions, and how sometimes we can lose, our focus on the ball that we were just talking about, right? Now, sometimes, things can kind of mess up the plans that we had. I know one big thing that, people tend to, people really tend to fall victim to is having people talking about them. One point I wanted to say is nobody has the power to take control of how you feel unless you give it to them. I'm gonna say it again. Nobody has the power to take control of how you feel unless you give it to them. Did you know that? People tend to blame other people because of their failures. People will blame this person, that person. Oh, this person made me feel this way, so that's why I wasn't able to do this. oh, this person over here, he or she made me feel like this, and that's why I'm not where I want to be today, because it's their fault. And
Yeah.
because they made me feel mad, they made me angry. Now all my day is ruined. Let me tell you something. Haters only have the power that you give them. If you give it to them, then you're gonna fall in that trap of thinking that you less than.
Mm-hmm.
So don't ever allow a person to dictate how you go about your future. And see, the problem is we get so caught up in what other people think and what other people have to say about us, and we listen to their negative opinions, that it becomes our own opinion. Ooh.
Ooh.
Did you hear what I just said? I said we we listen too much to other people's negative opinions that it becomes our
Mm-hmm.
own opinion. And now we
Mm-hmm.
thinking toxic about ourselves. And it's a dangerous trap. It's a dangerous trap of thinking that you're less than, because that's
Mm-hmm.
going to lead to anxiety. That's going to lead to depression. That's going to lead to other negative thoughts that go on in your mind. So I just want to just kind of just let y'all know, man, just kind of just reiterate with y'all, man. Stop letting negative people in your life run your life, and continue to keep on keeping on, and know that you are worth something, and that
Yeah,
you have value, and that you have uniqueness. And I
absolutely.
can't stress that enough, because I know somebody, who's listening to this, you may have thought that your life wasn't anything because of what your mama said, what your daddy said, what your grandma said, what your friends said. You might have been thinking that your life had no meaning just because they told you that it didn't have no meaning. But I have the power,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to tell you that you control your own emotions, you control your thoughts. And whatever you feed is what you're gonna get out. You are what you
Yeah.
eat.
Mm.
You are what you eat. So if you feeding yourself negative emotions, guess what? You're gonna become negative. That's
You sure
probably
will.
one of the best things I heard from one of my former co-hosts. If you feed yourself negative, you become negative.
Mm-hmm.
So be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of what you let in your mind, because what you let in your mind will will allow your body to react the way that it does, because it's a mind body connection. So
Yep. Absolutely.
if your mind is thinking all crazy, your body gonna react to that. That's why,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, suicides happen, because their mind is all in the mind. The mind is telling them something. Their mind is telling them something crazy, and their
Mm-hmm.
body's reacting to it. And
Mm-hmm.
their actions follow what their mind thinks. So you got to have control of that mind, and that's by being able to filter out what you surround yourself with, what you put in your mind. And once you put that filter on your mind, you're gonna be unstoppable.
Yep.
So just remember that, man. So, like I said, don't give nobody the power to control you, you know, and just continue to keep having that sharp mind, to where when you go out here, you won't allow nobody to stop you, because you're gonna be living your purpose, and you know that what you're doing is meaningful to you.
Yeah. Mm. Keep that eye on the ball.
There you go. Yes, ma'am. But yeah, that's man. I mean, we could talk all day on this. I know Miss Sandra got a little
I
event,
sure can.
coming up at 7:30 my time, 8:30 her time. We want to make sure that she gets on time. She want to get to her event on time. So that's one of the points I wanted to conclude on, because it's just crazy, like what people let how other people control them. And I'm just trying to tell y'all, don't do that, man. I stopped doing that a long time ago. I know when I was coming up, I used to live my life through other people. It influenced how I dressed and influenced how I looked. But now I've gotten to
Mm-hmm.
a point where I've just been happy with myself. And now,
Yeah.
it doesn't, what people say about me, people can call me names, people can say I'm not this, I'm not that. But I've gotten to a point
Yeah.
to where that doesn't bother me no more. Why? Because I've just learned how to accept myself. I've learned to love myself enough to look myself in the mirror and be like, man, I look like the best person on earth. I look like what God intended me to be, and I'm gonna go out and walk it. And despite of what other people might say, despite of the rejections I might face, I'm gonna be all right, because I know that if I'm still here, I'm still blessed. So I've gotten to that place in my life to where I can be mentally strong enough to be able to say that about myself and not let others dictate how I'm feeling.
Right.
So, you know, but hey, that's really all I got. Miss Sandra, bro, did you want to add anything
Nothing.
before we closed out, or you didn't
I
say
think
enough?
Yeah. No, I just want to reiterate what you said, keeping your eye on the ball, keep away from social media if you can, in a way where you won't get involved with all that negativity. Keeping your eye on the ball is the main focus here, to be able to clear out the clutter in the brain and get clear with yourself to be able to move forward in your purpose. I mean, you said it exactly how it should be. And you said it right on cue, right on time. Walk in your purpose. When you start doing that, all that just goes away. And when you work at it and you really do the inner work, man, you won't have problems with anybody or anything. Not one thing that one person has to say will affect you. And you'll become, like you said, mentally stable, even stronger than you have been. I also wanted to say, thank you one more time for having me. This conversation was really eye-opening for a lot of things. And I think we spoke about a lot of deep issues here, and I enjoyed it. I sincerely enjoyed it. So thank you for having me again.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll definitely have to continue to keep talking about some of these things, some of these real life issues that people tend to feel like they can't talk about. But
Yeah.
how are you ever going to, come up with a solution if you don't ever talk about the problem? So
Right.
that's that.
Right.
So that was
Exactly.
the whole point of this, man. Because I got sick and tired of seeing this happening, and I'm like, this needs to be talked about. This is something that don't get talked about enough. So that's what we gonna do, man. That's part of disinfecting your life. You know what I'm saying? We trying to disinfect some of those some of those stains in your life, man, that just keep staying there, man. So we trying to get rid of that. So
Yeah, most
this was
definitely.
this was a deep topic, but I think it was a much needed topic to be talked about, and that's why we talked about it. But
I-
yeah, I thought it was a great conversation. Appreciate you coming on. Uh, I'll just let the audience know to follow Miss Sandra on IG at Sandy Yvette, right? That's how you say it. Sandy Yvette.
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah. With an I, not a Y, and it's all together.
Right, there you go. So Sandy,
Yep.
SandVette. So
Yes.
you can check her out on Instagram. Also check me out on Instagram at Disinfect Your Life. That's no space, no capitals. Hey, don't be afraid to reach out to us, man. If you got some questions and you want to talk about some things, hey man, we're here to help you out, man. So don't be afraid
Absolutely.
to, reach out if you need anything. Like I said, I'm here. You got my Instagram, you can sign up for one of my connect calls. It's free. You definitely have a conversation with me anytime, man. Anytime.
Absolutely. They can go to my IG as well and connect with me, one to one. It's right on there, and it's a free call.
There you go. There you go. Me and Sandra, we got resources, baby. You know what I'm saying? So go check us out, man. And then for those of you who haven't got my book, go get you a copy, man. Step Toward Your Purpose, man. Definitely gonna help you out. Definitely gonna be like a little guide for y'all in case y'all wondering, like, what is it that I should expect when I step out into my purpose and step into this life that I want to live. Hey man, go check out the book, man. I got some personal stories in there. I kind of lead y'all and guide y'all on the way to the journey, and I kind of prepare you to what you can expect when you're trying to live the life, in your purpose. So definitely go get that, man. That's on my Amazon. That's on Amazon. So definitely go get you a copy. It's also my link in my Instagram under my link tree. So definitely go check that out, man. But yeah, man, we got a lot of great topics coming up. Hopefully me and Miss Sandra, we can come up with another one. We'll, bring it right to y'all, man. We always bring
Absolutely.
the heat. We always bring the fire, man. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, y'all, Man, it's been a great time. It's been a great episode. This your boy, Chris Summons, alongside special guest Sandra Cruz. We out, y'all. Take care. Peace.